The girl had a very magical ability. As long as she put her hand into the sea, fish from a radius of more than 10 kilometers would gather around her. The fish seemed to be summoned by an invisible force and surrounded Ella. The fish that had been waiting for a long time showed greedy and happy smiles because they could return with a full load without having to work hard. However, Ella's special ability was far more than that. It turned out that Ella was not from the village. More than 10 years ago, the village chief and the village doctor were chatting on the beach when they accidentally discovered a small boat flipped over on the reef. There was also a sound of a baby's tuck inside. So the villagers worked together to lift the boat up. The village chief went to the inside of the boat and prepared to rescue the baby. Hearing the sound of the baby's tuck coming from the front, the village chief slowly reached over. When the village chief came out again, he was holding a baby in his arms. The villagers came to him one after another. They were also curious about the baby. When the doctor checked the village chief's injuries, he found that the wound was rapidly healing. They realized that the baby in their arms was not simple. Even May, who had been late for many years, became clear-headed. From then on, Ella lived with the village chief's family. Every time they went fishing, they got a lot. As long as they stayed by Ella's side, no matter what, all diseases can be cured. Every day, the villagers come to visit Ella, while Ella reads books beside her. Every time the villagers leave, they say thank you to Ella to express their gratitude to her. However, the more powerful the ability is, the more unknown dangers it brings. When Ella was playing with her friend Philip, she found a beehive in front of her. Driven by curiosity, Ella slowly moved her hand closer to the beehive. The little bees not only did not attack Ella, but were very considerate of the clothes in Ella's hand. Ella was a little surprised. She showed Philip this magical scene, but the bees began to attack Philip. Philip prayed to God for Ella. Seeing her companions being attacked by bees, Ella seemed to have erupted with a mysterious power, like the turbulent sea. When she opened her eyes again, she found that the little bees had died on the spot. Both of them were scared of this situation. Ella asked Philip not to leak the matter. The final tragedy happened. Relying on Ella's powerful healing ability, the villagers ignored their own bodies and held free fighting competitions from time to time. They didn't care even if they were beaten black and blue. After each game, the village chief would come to the sleeping Ella. As long as he stayed by her side for a while, a magical scene would happen. The injuries on the village chief's face were slowly recovering. This was more effective than any good medicine. However, when Ella went out to recuperate, several children who were looking for death had an accident. It turned out that they often played a kind of bleeding game, which was to eat poisonous fruits and then feel Ella's as fast as possible. This was both thrilling and exciting. Seeing that the girl was hesitant to act, Junior snatched the fruit from the girl's hand and swallowed it immediately. Then several people quickly got up and rushed towards Ella's direction. However, Junior only had 15 minutes. However, when several people arrived at Ella's, Junior's condition did not improve. If this continued, the boy's life would be in danger. The girl came to the window to observe the situation in the house, but found that there was no one at all. The companions immediately realized that something was wrong, and Philip returned home to ask his father for help because he was the only doctor in the village before. Through understanding, they learned that due to the recent aftermath, Ella, who had gone fishing on the first day of the month, was temporarily called to go fishing. Everyone carried Junior to the clinic, and the doctor was ready with some first aid tools. The first step was to clean the stomach. The doctor immediately rescued the boy. When all the contents of the stomach were discharged, Leisha found that the boy's breathing had stopped. The doctor immediately performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Some people were happy and some were worried. When Yuming was happy about his fruitful harvest, the woman in the dark urged them to go back quickly. The village chief brought Ella to the clinic quickly. Faced with the sudden evil, Junior's parents were unwilling to believe this fact. Everyone could only pin their hopes on Ella. Ella was not sure if she could save the boy. She slowly approached Junior, but after a long time, there was still no response. Ella's ability could not bring people back to life. The Franks wanted to ask Ella again, but the facts were in front of them. Junior really left them forever. The villagers held a funeral for the boy, and everyone fell into their own mourning. Ella was also very uncomfortable. She held up the seal that had died at the beginning, but the miracle did not happen. After experiencing this incident, Ella began to become happy. The village chief had been counseling Ella. Because of Lisa's distraction, she cut her hand while cutting vegetables. However, strangely, the wound on the finger was not pre-examined. In order to get further verification, the village chief used a knife to cut his palm, but the wound was not pre-examined either. The two seemed to realize something. Could it be that Ella's ability had disappeared? The village chief called a meeting of all the villagers and then showed the wound on her palm. The village chief thought that Ella might be too frightened and witnessed something she had never seen before, which caused her ability to disappear temporarily. The village chief asked the doctor to reopen the clinic. Anyone who needs medical treatment can go to the clinic in the future. All visits to Ella are now suspended. However, this was opposed by the villagers. The villagers only wanted to protect their own interests. When everyone was arguing about this, nothing stood up. As the village chief's wish, she did not stand on the side of the village chief, but asked the villagers to vote by raising their hands. How many people wanted Ella to have a rest? How many people thought we should continue to work part-time here? Here. It's a university. Come here. In view of this situation, the village chief and Lisa were helpless. The next day, there was still a line in front of the village chief's house. Everyone presented their gifts just to make Ella happy. I hope this can restore Ella's ability and create more benefits for the village. That day, Junior's parents found the village chief. It turned out that Junior's departure had hit his mother hard, so she wanted to take this opportunity to leave the island for some fresh air. However, the village chief did not agree to this request because the island stipulated that villagers could not leave the island. Faced with the village chief's ruthlessness, Frank was very disappointed with the village chief and thought he was a coward. It was already late at night. Lisa carefully covered Ella with a quilt. Suddenly, she felt something and saw that her wound was slowly healing. When the village chief also came to Ella, he found that his wound was also slowly healing. The two of them also understood this. Only when Ella was asleep would she have the ability to heal, so that night he carefully took Aunt May to visit her. Aunt May, who had a relapse of Alzheimer's disease, seemed to have become clear and bright again. This behavior of his wife naturally aroused the dissatisfaction of the village chief. Lisa believed that there was nothing wrong with healing her mother. However, Aunt May, who had recovered, immediately convened a village meeting. After hearing that Ella's ability had been restored, the villagers seemed very happy. Everyone was discussing how to use Ella's ability to realize their inner wishes. Tanyu was not pitied. She was just a little girl. Only the kind-hearted doctor did something for Ella. The villagers obviously didn't want to hear such remarks. The doctor was scared out of the game. She was extremely disappointed with the villagers on the island, so she found Frank and said that she had a way to get a boat to leave this place together. Seeing the doctor's sincere attitude, Frank also showed his secret. She tore down the floor of her house and built a small boat. Several people agreed on a time to go to Lee Island. Due to the lack of Ella's special ability, the current aftermath is very bleak. In order to prevent this situation from continuing, the villagers found the village chief to discuss matters. They told about the current bad situation. If there is no rich aftermath, the residents on the island will starve. The villagers knew that Ella's ability had been restored and hoped that the village chief would continue to let Ella play a role. Sure enough, May leaked the news. The village chief was in a dilemma at this time. May thought of a good idea. She handed the village chief a bottle of sleeping pills. It was obvious that she was going to die. The village chief disagreed with her mother-in-law's approach. However, May was still attacking the village chief in order to break down the village chief's stubbornness. The wife also stood on May's side, so the helpless village chief had to agree to May's request. In the evening, Lisa ground the sleeping pills into powder and put them into the water and stirred them evenly. Ella drank the water with sleeping pills without knowing it. After Ella fell into a deep sleep, the village chief and others carried Ella to the beach. May and others gathered together to hold a grand ceremony for the first time. After May's trial, the cultivation officially began. The village chief held Ella and prepared to make a bet. Then he put Ella's little hand into the water. The villagers had already made preparations. With Ella's help, the villagers had a lot of leisure time. The residents on the island smiled for a long time. People enjoyed the fresh food easily. Looking at the hypocritical smiles of the residents on the island and the ugly faces of the villagers, the village chief decided to take Ella away from the island. The doctor told the village chief Frank's plan. Tonight was the best time to leave. Little did he know that May had seen every move of the two. So when the doctor returned home, May had been waiting for a long time. The doctor was also curious about the purpose of May's coming here. May wanted to know what the village chief and the doctor had said. The doctor lied that he just wanted to care more about Ella, without any other thoughts. May did not get any useful information and left immediately. The doctor felt uneasy while drinking, and then she fell to the ground in pain. She tried to prop herself up, but was still helpless. It turned out that May had put poisonous fruit in the wine. Then May quickly came to the throne. The two seemed to have a secret. Then a raging fire broke out in the doctor's house. Because the fire was too big, everyone could only watch the fire devour the doctor. The soaring fire attracted the attention of Frank's family. Several people immediately realized that something was wrong and decided to advance the plan to leave the island. When the village chief brought Ella to Frank's house, they found that it was already empty. The village chief quickly ran to the shore, but found that Frank's family had left in a small boat. The next morning, a yacht was heading towards the island, which caused the villagers to immediately issue a warning. The villagers seemed to be uneasy about the outsiders. In order to prevent in case someone takes out the pistol hidden in the box, he will use force to solve the problem as long as the situation is not right. The other party is a policewoman and the other is a child welfare worker. After the village chief's inquiry, he learned that someone reported that there was a child abuse problem on the island. It turned out that it was Frank's family who called the police. At the strong request of the staff, the village chief had to take the people to his home. The staff was rushing to Ella's home at this time. The villagers followed behind them without slowing down. Looking at the residents on the island, a strange atmosphere lingered around. Taking this opportunity, Philip secretly came to the boat and asked for reinforcements. Then he came to Ella's home with his voice on his back. He wanted to protect Ella in his own way. At this time, the staff was talking to Ella and discussing whether Ella had been treated unfairly. Ella believed that she had not been abused. However, when the staff was about to leave, Ella stopped him. Ella's behavior, the movement, aroused the suspicion of the staff. He suggested to the policewoman that they take Ella away so that they could do more consultation. When the staff took Ella away, they were opposed by the villagers. They blocked the policewoman's way. The policewoman warned the villagers, but the villagers did not want to give in. In this way, the contradiction was resolved bit by bit. At this moment, David took out his pistol and the two sides formed a confrontation. Neither of them was willing to give in. The villagers wanted to control the staff. The policewoman's gun accidentally went off and hit the village chief. David decisively shot and the policewoman fell in the blood. The staff was also controlled by the villagers. The village chief begged the villagers to ask Ella to heal him. He threatened the village chief that he could never leave the island. In order to get treatment as soon as possible, the village chief had to agree. In order to let Ella fall asleep quickly, Lisa asked Ella to drink the water in the cup so that the village chief could be treated. Ella wanted to know the truth of the matter, otherwise I would not drink the water in the cup. Seeing Ella getting up and trying to leave, Lisa pushed Ella onto the bed and then forced her to drink the water. However, Ella kept resisting and refused to drink the water. Philip asked why she had to attack her father. Lisa was also incredulous. She said that the doctor was a good friend of hers and she would not do such a thing. Lisa also advised Philip not to do anything stupid. When Philip's attention was distracted, she thought about healing first. Unexpectedly, a tragedy happened. With Ella's selfish scream, some of her abilities were triggered. When Ella opened her eyes again, everyone in the house had lost their lives. However, when Ella walked out of the door, no one was spared and all the villagers on the island had lost their lives. She came to the beach alone, feeling very sad and hating her ability for bringing death to the island. With the appearance of the boat in front, the rescuers finally arrived at the island.